What's so great about such a low-spec man?
My boss, known around the office as the handsome manager, said this with an unnaturally fresh smile. He has looked down on me, an older, high school educated regular employee, since the day he transferred. It was the same even at my wedding. There wasn't a hint of a blessing in his attitude.
You're so beautiful, yet you have such unusual taste. A woman like you could find a much higher spec partner.
The faces of the employees around us turned pale. If their thoughts were spoken aloud, it would be, "Manager, you've done. It's one thing to put me down, but this time, it even made my wife feel terrible." I had a ton to say to my boss, but I kept silent. I didn't want to ruin the vibe of our wedding, which is a major life event. It was my wife who spoke up against the boss's remarks.
Having you as a boss, I really feel sorry for all your employees.
The next day, when I went to the HR department's floor, I couldn't find the manager anywhere. And for good reason, because he had unknowingly said something he shouldn't have to someone he definitely shouldn't have. My name is John Hart, a 35-year-old rank-and-file employee. I work in the HR department of a sports equipment manufacturer. At 35, you'd think I'd have some responsibility. That's what people often think, but I'm just a rank-and-file employee handling all sorts of miscellaneous tasks within the company. Even in such a position, it's generally assumed that if you're a company employee, you've at least graduated from college. However, I'm just a high school graduate for some reasons. After graduating from high school, I had no goal and worked part-time. It was this company that picked me up from that aimless state. To repay the favor, I worked diligently every day behind the scenes to ensure that the employee's performance is maximized. To be honest, it bothers me to see employees of my same age rising through the ladder. But at the time, I was completely exhausted from competing with anyone. So, I never aimed for promotions by getting certifications, sucking up to bosses at drinking parties, or promoting myself. In fact, even when the director suggested I get promoted, I declined, stating it was too premature for me.
John, you've been with the company for over 10 years now, right? You understand HR departments work well and are highly respected by the staff. Maybe it's time for you to show your true capabilities as a manager.
The director, Robert, has always looked out for me. He is the ideal boss. He notices the extra tasks I silently take on without anyone else realizing. I did want to repay the director's kindness, but I couldn't make up my mind. I appreciate the offer, but I'm uncomfortable with leading others or giving orders. If that's all right, I'd like to keep doing what I'm doing now.
If you insist, I won't force you, but you should think about it before you start a family. Once you have kids, it's not guaranteed that both parents can work. You'll have expenses for education and housing, and while it's not much, being in a managerial position does come with extra allowances. You might be in a tight spot if you keep this mindset.
Apart from me, there was no one else in the HR department who met the criteria for promotion to manager. My refusal to accept the promotion offer sent the HR department back to square one. As a result, a transfer from another department was decided. The new manager appointed was Thomas Wilson. He is 5 years younger than me and 30 years old. He's tall and slender but has muscular arms visible at a glance. He's what you'd call lean and muscular. The fresh-faced handsome new arrival caused quite a stir among the female staff of the HR department, but it was only for a moment. As soon as Thomas began his introduction, the room fell silent.
Hello everyone. I've been appointed as the new manager of the HR department, Thomas Wilson. I studied business administration in college and have obtained national certifications as a certified public accountant and a financial planner. My mission is to improve the operational efficiency of the HR department and enhance the capabilities of our staff. I encourage you all not to be constrained by past norms, but to fully embrace my instructions and guidance.
Thomas was a highly ambitious individual. Being appointed a manager at 30 seemed a significant achievement to me, but he was still in a hurry, feeling it was not enough. What I learned later was that, although Thomas often boasted about his academic credentials, he had failed to get into his first choice college and ended up attending one that was a rank lower. So, while he appeared confident, he secretly harbored a serious inferiority complex about his educational background. It was intended that I would be promoted to manager, but he must have heard that I turned down the offer. Knowing that a high school graduate had declined his current position leaves Thomas somewhat unsettled. He might have been trying to maintain his self-esteem by belittling me, assuming I was only a high school graduate.
You're a high school graduate, aren't you? Can't study, can't go to college, and can barely manage the bare minimum in human relations. Someone who can't take responsible actions surely can't lead a team in an organization. Though, I doubt anyone would follow you in the first place.
Maybe you're right. I'll handle any menial task. I didn't want to sour the atmosphere in the HR department, so I decided to fully go along with Thomas. However, a gloomy air started to envelop the HR department. The director, noticing this and worried, commented,
Thomas originally tended to emphasize educational background too much. When he was in the sales department, he wouldn't listen to those with lower education and even judge clients based on their academic credentials. I thought moving to the HR department and gaining some career experience might help him build confidence and become more relaxed, even though it meant promoting him to a manager in a different department.
From my perspective, the manager seems well educated enough.
His envy is too strong, and he's letting his complexes get the better of him. There will be unpleasant moments, but please look after him for a while.
Given these circumstances, the director discreetly assigned me to be Thomas' support. This turned out to be an incredibly difficult task. Thomas, with his quick wit and eloquence, did have the makings of an excellent salesman. However, he utterly lacked the ability to care for, respect, and develop others. Within less than a week, the HR department staff had distanced themselves from him. Even though Thomas was the issue, we couldn't let this disrupt our work. So, I went around speaking to each person individually, asking them to be patient because the manager is still getting used to his position, so please bear with us for a while. I had a reason for wanting to quietly settle the turmoil in the HR department. In fact, 1 month after Thomas transferred, I was going to have my wedding. I have to invite Thomas as my boss, obviously. The truth is, I don't want to worsen our relationship with the department head any more than it already is.
The wedding is coming up soon. My dad, mom, and even grandpa are really looking forward to it. It's a shame grandma passed away a few years ago. I wish she could have seen me in my wedding dress.
I'm sure she's watching over you from somewhere. How about we bring her photo? That way, we can show your bridal look to Grandma, too. Let's make sure to reserve a special seat for her. Hearing my suggestion, Ashley seemed to have an epiphany.
That's a brilliant idea. I have a photo from when we went on a trip abroad. She really loved that picture, so I'll bring it to the venue.
Ashley is my fiancée. She quit her job to prepare for the wedding, but until recently, she was working as an office worker at a certain company. She's a kind, serious, and great cook. My parents think she's too good for me, but they're happy nonetheless. I'm just a high school graduate and a regular employee, so I don't make a lot of money. We can't afford a lavish wedding, but Ashley is grateful and happy with my intentions. I can't help but feel saved by Ashley's subtle kindness. Now, I'd like to talk about how I met Ashley. Ashley was an employee at a client company of the place I work. We met when she had just joined her company as a new employee. Ordering necessary supplies is an important task in the HR department. Ashley's company deals with office supplies. Therefore, our transactions took place throughout the year. Now, Ashley can take care of various things, but she was very clumsy when she first joined. There were notable mistakes in ordering supplies and issuing documents. However, through our interactions, I came to know she is a hard-working, serious, and sincere person. Eventually, I found myself having feelings for her, but since she was a client's employee, I kept my special feelings to myself. We got closer not through work, but in our private lives. I work at a sports equipment manufacturer, but I was originally a die-hard baseball kid. I batted second and played shortstop. There was a time when I aimed for the National High School Baseball Championship or the professional baseball world, spending every day thinking about baseball. Due to my job, I had only been watching baseball for about 10 years, but then I started playing again by chance.
John, your play is always really good to watch. You're not a home run hitter, but you rack up hits that lead to scores, and the success rate of your bints is impressive. There was a pro baseball player known as a bint master back in the day, and John, you have that vibe.
No, that's definitely an overstatement. When I was younger, I thought I could become a baseball player, but the results honestly show it's not such an easy world.
No world goes exactly as you wish, but having played baseball, you must have developed the ability to look around you, especially playing shortstop. You need to keep an eye not just on the area between second and third base, but also from the shortstop to second base gap.
The man who said this while narrowing his eyes is Paul Smith. He's an 80-year-old who has demonstrated his abilities as a president of a company for many years. Recently, he handed over his position to his son and stepped back, now acting more as a chairman. Nowadays, he's more passionate about managing a community baseball team than running the company. Playing shortstop, you sometimes have to run towards center field or left field indeed. I'm not sure how much awareness I have, but it might indeed use a lot of stamina.
Maybe it's because you're looking around that you use so much stamina. Otherwise, you couldn't cover bases for steals or pickoffs. It's also the key to initiating double plays and relay plays.
Being praised by the organizer of the community baseball team, I felt a bit embarrassed and my face turned red. It's been years since someone praised me like this. The last time I was praised was back in middle school. Of course, I must have been praised as an adult too, but strangely, my childhood memories are still vivid.
What's wrong? You're blushing so much. I just spoke the truth. Why are you getting embarrassed?
When I noticed Ashley was behind me, it's actually quite coincidental. But while working at the company, Ashley was also active as the manager of our amateur baseball team. There were a few baseball enthusiasts among the employees at Ashley's company. Through our business exchanges, it became known that I used to play baseball seriously, and the suggestion to join the amateur baseball team came through another employee from a different company we were doing business with. Of course, I was also aware that Ashley was the manager. Although I had sworn never to play baseball again, I also wanted to get closer to Ashley, so I ended up joining the team impulsively. That's the whole story of how I started playing amateur baseball. While our favorite pro baseball teams were different, Ashley had enjoyed watching baseball since she was a kid. Especially in the hot summer, Ashley took on all sorts of chores, from making cold drink to setting up tents. If Ashley was in trouble, I would help her without hesitation. Gradually, when Ashley had a problem, she would turn to me for help. As we continued like this, we became close, and we started to see each other as special. Ashley, please marry me. I only have a high school diploma, and my options for departments to join or teams to advance in are limited. So, I can't expect much in terms of career advancement in the future, but I'll do my best for your happiness. At that moment, I also had the feeling that I would do things I wasn't good at for Ashley's happiness. Perhaps she saw through my heart, because Ashley smiled and said,
You don't have to force yourself. I was drawn to your kind personality that cares for everyone. Playing so that everyone can shine. That's the position you excel in the most.
Ashley didn't care at all that I only had a high school diploma and became my lifelong partner. Meeting such a wonderful woman and being able to marry her was something I never imagined. That's why I am truly grateful to Ashley from the bottom of my heart. Now, let's return to the present, but that's why I didn't want to worsen my relationship with Thomas and dampen the joyful atmosphere of the wedding. On the day of the wedding, relatives, friends, colleagues, and bosses from our respective companies rushed to the venue to celebrate our marriage. It was a small wedding, but it was filled with the warm hearts of people. During the reception, everyone came to pour beer along with words of congratulations. I thought the happy time would continue peacefully like this until then, but reality wasn't that sweet. Just as the reception was about to end, the situation took a turn. Thomas, who had just joined the company, came to pour beer for me. Honestly, I didn't think he would behave as usual in front of my colleagues and bosses, including me and Ashley. However, Thomas handed me a beer bottle and instructed me to pour it into his glass.
I came all the way here even though I just transferred, and we haven't had much interaction. Besides, it'd be weird if I, with a higher education, poured beer for you while you were bowing down to me, right?
Well, yeah, that might be true. I was so surprised by Thomas's attitude that I became flustered in my response. Thomas had a habit of bringing up educational backgrounds whenever he didn't like something someone said. He mentioned low-level college, high school diploma, and vocational school graduation, and so on. Even though he was like that, he was still my boss in this company. So, reluctantly, I decided to invite him to the wedding. Other department heads and managers who appreciated me also came to the ceremony. Therefore, I also hoped that attending the wedding would be a good opportunity for Thomas, who was isolated in the HR department. However, the result was completely the opposite.
What was good about someone as low-spec as him?
With his refreshing looks, Thomas is also known as the handsome manager. There are also troublesome behaviors due to his education-oriented mindset, so of course, it's not a 100% complimentary nickname. However, Thomas seems to be aware of his own handsomeness. With an unnaturally bright smile, he looked at me and Ashley.
For someone as beautiful as you have quite peculiar tastes. A woman like you could surely find a more high-spec partner.
There was no hint of congratulations in his tone. In my mind, I thought, just as I expected. In fact, when I handed him the invitation, there were some concerning signs in Thomas's behavior. I personally handed out wedding invitations to the employees in the HR department. It's a fact that their precious day off would be wasted just because we happen to work in the same department. I handed out the invitations myself to show my sincerity. Since we had talked about getting engaged, everyone genuinely congratulated us with heartfelt wishes. However, Thomas's reaction was completely different. He glanced at the invitation but never made eye contact with me. Without even looking at the contents, he casually placed the invitation on the desk. His indifference left me speechless.
Why did you choose this week for the wedding? This time of the year coincides with the budget deadline, so the whole company is in chaos. If you're going to drag employees out, you should consider not only your own happiness, but also the situation of those around you. Oh, what a mess, what a mess.
Thomas began to complain about the wedding date, although it wasn't clear what exactly was bothering him. Glancing around, the other employees seemed unsure of how to intervene and wore troubled expressions. Looking down, continuing the discussion about the wedding at this point would only inconvenience the other employees. Reluctantly, I surrendered completely. I apologize for not considering your schedule. If you're busy, it's perfectly fine if you can attend.
What are you talking about? In this kind of situation, it's the boss who should give a congratulatory speech. Are you implying that you don't care about me? Due to my position, I have to give a wedding gift. I find it wasteful to give you a gift, but I have to do it anyway, so I've included it in my schedule.
No, I didn't expect you to attend, so please don't worry about the gift. It's really okay. Feeling the urge to escape from this situation as soon as possible, Thomas seemed satisfied with my response, but there was clearly an awkward atmosphere lingering in the department at that moment. It was clear from his actions and words since he took office up until today that he was naturally a tough person to deal with. I hadn't expected him to make snide remarks in front of the employees. I went home and vented to Ashley about what had happened today. I was really surprised. I had thought for sure that at least my wedding would be properly celebrated, but I guess I was foolish to even hope a little.
Thomas is 30, right? I bet he's just feeling the pressure because everyone around you is getting married. Don't worry so much. Everything will be fine on the day.
Ashley offered me some encouraging words. At that time, Ashley hadn't yet realized the true horror of what Thomas was capable of. Spending time with Ashley was very comforting. Even though the issue with Thomas lingered in the back of my mind, my spirits were completely lifted. However, even on the day of the wedding, Thomas' attitude was the same as always. I regretted inviting him, realizing it was a mistake. Suddenly, overcome with frustration, I couldn't stop shaking. Without noticing anything was amiss with me, Thomas loudly proclaimed for the whole venue to hear.
Oh, someone with your lack of education is doomed to be a low-level employee forever. Your salary won't increase, and your wife will surely struggle. I don't mean to be rude, but you should start looking for part-time work now."
Thomas was in his own world, completely oblivious to the shocked expressions of the colleagues around him. Everyone must have been thinking, "Thomas, you've done." However, Thomas, perhaps feeling exhilarated from speaking his mind, tried to leave with a brighter smile than usual. I had never seen anything so ridiculous in my life. Thomas's cheerfulness was just a manifestation of his shallowness. I felt pity for Thomas. Then, someone called out to stop Thomas. It was Ashley, who would become my wife. She had heard stories about Thomas, but seemed not to have expected this much. Ashley was angry.
To think you're a supervisor, I truly feel sorry for your employees.
Thomas, surprised, turned around and asked.
"What do you mean?"
Thomas turned back to Ashley. Despite her usually calm nature, Ashley could be quite formidable when angry. I prepared myself for what was to come.
Why can't you celebrate your employees' happiness? How can you possibly foster growth in your team with that attitude? You've been smiling this whole time, but what are those smiles really about? Your smiles lack sincerity. If you think attending a wedding is meaningless, you shouldn't have come at all. It would have been more respectable and genuine.
When Ashley unleashed what she had been holding inside, Thomas's expression changed.
"I get this uncomfortable feeling when I see others happy,"
he retorted loudly, just as our managers and directors seemed to enter his field of view. The executives are taken aback by Thomas' distraught appearance. Thomas was probably panicked by their reaction. He turned his back on us again and left the venue. He seems to have been quite disturbed. He left clutching a beer bottle, his smile as refreshingly misplaced as ever, but ultimately ridiculous. The next day, when I arrived at work as usual, the normally quiet HR department was unusually abuzz. After a wedding, it would have been normal to exchange greetings and share thoughts on the event. But everyone seemed tense and whispered among themselves. "What's going on?" I asked by way of greeting, and one of the employees whispered back.
"We can't find the manager. It seems he's been called to the president's office."
I see.
Do you know something?"
I reacted impulsively, though none of the employees were aware of the situation. Pretending to make copies, I made my way to the president's office. As expected, I could hear several voices from inside as I approached. When I lightly knocked on the door, the secretary peeked out.
"You've come at just the right time. Please, come in."
Inside, I found Thomas, our company's president, a client's chairman, and my beloved wife, Ashley, all sitting at the table with solemn expressions. "Thank you for attending our wedding yesterday."
It was a wonderful wedding. Ashley looked truly happy.
Yes, indeed.
Ignoring Thomas, the chairman, Ashley and I engaged in conversation. Then, the president looked at me, and he apologized to me in front of Thomas.
"I'm sorry I couldn't make it to the wedding yesterday. I had a business trip planned 6 months ago. I really wanted to celebrate your new beginning."
"No, your thoughts alone are enough." I glanced at Thomas briefly. Thomas was usually confident manager, but he was clearly at a loss for words, his eyes darting around. Seeing Thomas so out of his element, I couldn't help but say, "Thank you for taking the time to come yesterday despite being so busy. I understand it's a busy time for the company, and I apologize for any inconvenience to the HR department. I'm willing to do whatever is needed, so please feel free to direct me.
No, about yesterday, I just.
Despite being in front of the president, he couldn't manage to respond properly. His mind must have been in turmoil. Then, the client's chairman started to get to the point.
Right. We have an important matter to discuss. You're Thomas, aren't you? I saw you at Ashley's wedding yesterday, even if just for a moment. Thank you for coming despite it being a weekend.
Yes. As John's manager, I wanted to celebrate my employee's new beginning, so I attended.
Thomas tried to act as if the harsh words he had said to me during the wedding didn't happen, especially in front of the executives. Suddenly regaining his cheerful demeanor, pretending to be the ideal boss, he must have thought he could deceive everyone, but it was a futile effort.
I was truly shocked. I'm over 80 years old now. My wife passed away from illness a few years ago. I don't know when my time will come. So, being able to see my granddaughter Ashley's wedding with my own eyes made me incredibly happy. Moreover, her partner is John, who plays diligently in my amateur baseball team. When I was about to express my feelings to the two of you, you came over. I thought you were going to offer your congratulations, but what did you say?
Actually, the client's chairman calling Ashley his granddaughter was Paul Smith, who sponsors the amateur baseball team I belong to. Meaning, Ashley is the granddaughter of the client's chairman and the daughter of our company's president. To such a woman, Thomas had said disrespectful things, suggesting she had no eye for choosing a partner and should look for part-time work. When I got engaged to Ashley, considering the future, I had informed the employees of the HR department. However, that was just before Thomas took over as manager. I should have informed Thomas too, but his derogatory attitude towards me was so severe that I missed the chance to tell him about my engagement to Ashley. I'm sorry, Thomas. I didn't mean to hide it. However, you seem to dislike me so much that I never found the right moment to bring up personal matters, and before I knew it, the day had arrived. When I made an apologetic face, Ashley lightly restrained it.
Let's stop apologizing. It seems he's unaware of everything. It would be cruel to let him dig his own grave further. So it's better to clarify things now. If relationships sour, it affects the company too.
Your strength lies in your ability to look around and understand your surroundings. But perhaps because you see too much, you tend to overthink and worry about others too much. Given the situation, it's better to be direct and discuss your career plans moving forward.
Encouraged by Chairman Paul, I slowly stood in front of Thomas and clearly conveyed my future career plans as much as I knew. I met Ashley through my work in the HR department. I didn't know she was the president's daughter when I developed feelings for her. However, our relationship rapidly progressed through our connection in amateur baseball, and we started dating with marriage in mind. That was when I first became fully aware of Ashley's position. The client's company is globally recognized for its high-performance product development in office equipment. Though not very large, it operates as a family-owned business, and Ashley is the granddaughter of the company's founder, making her husband a potential successor. As for me, I had no ambition to climb the corporate ladder, but I understood that to be with Ashley, I needed to change. To repeat, I was a former high school baseball player, aspiring for baseball championships and professional leagues. However, an injury during practice ended my baseball dreams, and I lost my goal. In baseball, I was exposed to fierce competition, so I was completely burned out. so I took my own initiative to distance myself from the competition. The company that took me in allowed me to lead a peaceful life as an ordinary employee, but meeting Ashley made me realize I couldn't stay the same. I decided to prepare myself to grow as a future successor. I can say my experience and skills are sufficient yet. That's why I've been committed to learning the basics of HR work up to this day. I took on every task asked of me. The department head offered me a promotion to manager, but I planned to resign in a year, so I declined. And then you were brought in as the replacement.
Resigning, you say?
I'll be joining Paul's company. Initially, to learn the job, I'll start as a regular employee without any position. When our marriage was decided, I was offered the role of executive vice president to be involved in the management of the company. The chairman believed I could make a significant contribution based on my style of play in baseball. However, I felt that becoming an executive vice president without any track record would not sit well with the employees. Thinking this, I requested to start as a regular employee to learn the work first. That's the situation. Thomas had reached a point of no return. Despite being my wife, he had repeatedly made disrespectful comments to the daughter of one of our client's presidents. No one was there to offer a helping hand. At this moment, the president spoke to Thomas in a low voice.
Please go home for today. There are other concerning matters besides this incident. We will conduct a thorough internal investigation and inform you of your future with the company afterwards.
In fact, not just within the company, but extending to clients, there had been employees harassed for their educational background. Though the severity varied, the total number exceeded 50 people. The company was trying to broaden its business scope by valuing various abilities, not just educational background. Thus, alongside former high school athletes like me, there were super elites who had graduated from universities abroad. Thomas's actions were completely against the company's policy.
People who use sports equipment polish themselves in a dimension separate from academic background every day. The products we deal with belong to a world unrelated to educational attainment. We didn't hire you because of your academic background. You were hired because you diligently played soccer until high school, even though you were a substitute. If you had been a regular player, we probably wouldn't have hired you. I still remember how your eyes shone when you talked about soccer during the interview. Please, bring back the person you were back then.
It was later revealed that Thomas, like me, had also experienced failure in sports. He had practiced morning and evening, rain or shine, but never managed to secure a regular spot on the team. He tried hard to get into college in order to look back at the regular soccer team. However, he didn't get into his first choice college. While it was a prestigious college from my perspective, for Thomas, it was another experience of failure, just like soccer.
I'm sorry. I'll wash my face and start afresh.
2 weeks later, following the results of the internal investigation, Thomas was terminated from his position. A dismissal could have adversely affected his future job search, so, out of consideration, thanks to the president's kindness, he officially resigned for his own convenience. In the interim, I took over the manager's role until a successor was trained. When a junior showed promise, I transitioned to the client's company as a future successor. There had been no word from Thomas, and I was secretly worried about him. Years later, I heard a rumor about Thomas's whereabouts in the amateur baseball community. After wandering abroad for a while, Thomas returned home. Seemingly in better spirits, he began job hunting. He was hired as an administrative staff member for a local soccer team. His salary was less than half of what he made as an employee. Thomas also cleans toilets himself because there are few staff. He must have chosen to chase his dreams by letting go of his pride. By accepting his past as a bench warmer in soccer, he found value in nurturing young talent. Being on the bench allowed him to see a world others couldn't. I believed there was a place for Thomas, a job that was meant for him to do.
Just as I was getting used to my new job, I got an unexpected call from my former company's president, John. It had been a month since I worked there as a contractor.
Fix the new system's malfunction.
The reason I, a mere contractor, received a sudden termination notice was that John ignored my advice and trusted only in an incompetent employee, Mike, who got the job through connections and couldn't do his work properly. And then, John just couldn't believe I was already working for another company. I'm already working next door, so that's impossible. I felt sorry for the president panicking on the other end of the phone. He kept looking down on me, then just went ahead and hung up the phone without letting me get a word in. What happens at that company now doesn't concern me, but I do recognize the favor of being hired first. However, if they try to get me to work again, I'll have to make John and Mike, the ones who falsely accused me, pay a proper price. My name is Eric. Struggling to find a job, I was worried I'd end up unemployed. Just when I was about to give up after the next rejection, John took a liking to me in the interview, and I ended up working as a contractor at a tech startup. I was concerned about the majority being contractors with few full-time employees, but I owe a lot to the company that took me in. This company mainly takes on software development projects to assist with the digital transformation of small to medium-sized businesses, often tackling hands-on problem-solving requests, including industrial system design. The competition in the tech sector is fierce, and the projects brought in by sales are always challenging. But having gained hands-on experience through part-time jobs during my student days, I find the work fulfilling. I have no complaints about my job. It's fun and keeps me busy every day. However, the one thing that bothers me in a bad way is the presence of Mike, sitting there acting all high and mighty as a supervisor. Mike, a full-time employee, serves as the head of the software development department where I work. Yet, Mike's incompetence is well known within the department. Despite working at a software company, he's such a novice that he can't even code a simple Excel program. He's not completely computer literate, but tasks that take us 10 minutes can take him 3 hours. Instructions from Mike are always vague and careless, but as a lowly contractor, I couldn't complain. According to contractors who have been working here since before I joined, John has gone through 2 divorces, and Mike appears to be the child from his first marriage. Mike, who has been gaming since his student days, continued to live a jobless life even after graduating from college. Out of desperation, his ex-wife begged John to hire Mike as a full-time employee. This was a classic case of nepotism. And then John, who decided on the hire, immediately gave Mike, who had no proper work experience, a managerial position right after joining, and even put him in charge of contractors. Perhaps because of this, Mike, feeling overconfident, behaves arrogantly towards everyone.
You can't even do something this simple. I could finish it in half the time. But I'm letting you do this job for your sake, so you should be grateful to me.
While Mike always looks down on us, no one has ever seen him actually work properly. Yet, no one can oppose Mike, John's son, and I could only deflect the conversations. One day, Mike, who isn't in sales, suddenly brought in a project, but it was an unreasonable request. From looking at the specification document, it was clear that the project couldn't be delivered without several meticulous discussions and revisions with the client. No employee would voluntarily take on such a project. Since no one else would take it, I reluctantly took charge of the task. I checked with the sales department, and it seemed Mike had taken on the project on his own to boost his reputation. Looking at the specification document, I thought the overly ambitious project could be managed due to some leeway in the delivery schedule. However, I was gravely mistaken. I started the work after several detailed discussions with the client company. Then, when things started taking shape, Mike suddenly gave an impossible order.
Get that project delivered in 1 month. My order is final, got it?
The 1-month deadline for delivery was utterly impossible. Not only coding the program, but considering debugging to find errors and subsequent fixes made the schedule infeasible. I tried telling Mike it was impossible, but it was no use.
A contractor daring to complain to me, a full-timer. I said get it done in a month, so you will deliver in a month.
Mike often ignores me, but this time he seemed unusually frantic. Though it was a bare minimum effort, I managed to release just in time as Mike instructed. After the release, I found out from the client that Mike had mistakenly accepted the project with an unrealistic deadline. In fact, the client hadn't expected it to be completed on time either. When I proposed, given the rush, the system might encounter errors, which we'll fix as they arise, the client appreciated my work more than expected. A week later, as I predicted, we received a system error report. As I was about to head to the client, John arrived at my place, furious.
You're the one who released that system to that company, right?
I couldn't understand why John was so angry. The client was aware of the potential errors. Even after explaining, John wouldn't listen and even blamed me for Mike's order mistake.
Not only did you mess up the deadline, but you also caused a system error within a week. Don't do sloppy work. This is why contractors are unreliable. Are you trying to ruin this company?
John, who told you that?
Mike, he wouldn't lie to me.
Given meeting Mike's unreasonable demands, my work should have been appreciated. It was a tough project, but as a contractor, I couldn't argue back. As I was apologizing to John, Mike returned from the smoking area and joined John in blaming me instead of defending me. John wouldn't even bother to listen to what I, a contract worker, have to say, but he believed Mike's incorrect reports. The client was actually thankful for meeting their unreasonable requests and understood the possibility of system errors.
So you knew the system could fail and released it anyway. Is this the kind of half-baked work you always do? This is why contractors are useless. We can replace you anytime.
After berating me, John left the office angry without listening to me. And Mike, having pinned all the blame on me, looked down at me with satisfaction. The following week, we received another error report from the client. Having prepared for the anticipated errors, I immediately went to the client's company. Upon returning, Mike summoned me.
What's with your work? Doing things halfway.
This project was problematic from the start. The error was anticipated, so we're still okay. I never wanted to cut corners on my work. That's why I could handle the expected errors by preparing in advance. But Mike was not convinced. For Mike, who wanted to boost his own reputation, the ongoing errors in the project he directly accepted were the issue. While I was explaining to Mike that the project was now fine, John came in, red-faced again.
You again. How many times do you have to mess up?
I tried to explain that the project was successfully completed, but John wouldn't listen at all. Frustrated by John's attitude, which only considered Mike's incompetent interjections, I gave up arguing.
I wouldn't make such simple mistakes.
This guy says so. We don't need an incompetent like you. Your contract is terminated as of today. Don't bother coming back. Pack your things and leave.
A week later, despite other employees' attempts to keep me, my long-term contract was suddenly terminated. I really had to leave the company. A month after being fired, I received a direct call from John on my phone. Wondering why he would call after all this time, I answered,
Hey, contractor, the system's down. Fix it.
I was surprised at John's first words. Wondering what he meant by system failure, I realized it was no longer my concern after being unilaterally fired. I'm working at the company next door now, so that's impossible.
I don't care about that. You're just a contractor, right? Quit that contract and come back to fix this right now.
John said what he wanted and hung up. The project Mike had unreasonably taken on should be working fine. I wondered what he was talking about. Asking me to work now of all times must have been some mistake. I brushed it off and went back to my current job. But within an hour, my phone rang again. This time it was Mike.
Where are you right now?
Like I told John, I'm working at the company next door and can't do anything for you. Must be some mistake. I'm busy, so I'm heading up now. I explained politely, but neither John nor Mike seemed to listen.
Don't talk nonsense, just get here. As a contractor, you should be happy I'm offering you work, just come to the office now.
While tilting my head, wondering what Mike was on about, he just ranted and hung up. Curious about what was happening, I contacted a friend still working at John's company, only to find out the place had become chaotic since I left. Apparently, Mike had taken on another unreasonable project right before I quit, and now the whole staff was scrambling to finish it. I was even more surprised to hear that I supposedly took on the project and then abandoned the work before quitting the company. Since I left, complaints had surged, and with the current staff overwhelmed, John himself had to step in, an unprecedented situation. But that wasn't all. Among the complaints, some clients specifically requested me, appreciating my previous work on error handling. Despite being directly fired by John and having left the company, it was problematic for me to be involved now. The rest of that day, my phone stayed silent. Maybe they were too busy to call again. I thought that would be the end of it, but my assumption was naive. The next day, Mike called again. His disdainful attitude unchanged, trying to coerce me into working for the same unreasonable reasons as before. I've said this multiple times, but my situation has changed, so I can't just take on your work easily.
Who do you think you're talking to? Don't get cocky. Useless contractor like you can't do proper work anyway. Just do as I say.
So you're trying to get such an incompetent me to work. Isn't it strange to keep calling someone you think can't do the job?
That's just come to the office now, okay?
There seemed to be a hint of desperation in Mike's voice over the phone. But like yesterday, he just made his demands and hung up. Mike must be in over his head with another unreasonable project, causing trouble for everyone else. But my position had completely changed, so there was nothing I could do. Despite repeated calls from Mike, my response remained the same.
Concerned about the contract period. I can negotiate an extension for you. We just really need people right now, so come immediately.
They must be desperately short on staff. Though I disliked Mike, I felt a sense of obligation to the company that had once taken me in. Reluctantly, I discussed the situation with my current boss. He was understanding but had conditions. It turned out I could be involved as an external contractor for a short period if the company agreed. I told Mike I might be able to help this time only, as a special exception. So I can support you as an external contractor for a short period, but you will pay the consultancy fee, right?
You're coming back to the company. You should have just done as I said from the start.
Mike, as usual, didn't listen to me, pushing his misunderstandings and demands. When I mentioned the consultancy fee the company proposed, Mike was outraged at the amount.
What? Why should I pay such a huge amount to someone like you? Are you making a fool of me?
Indeed, the fee was substantial. But given that they were specifically requesting me, not as a contractor but for external support, the high fee wasn't unreasonable. Who's joking here? I'm offering to take this on as a formal job.
I'm offering to hire you again, so just listen to me as a contractor should.
In the end, Mike, not agreeing to the fee, looked down on me over the phone before hanging up. The next day, as I arrived at work, I ran into Mike by chance in front of the office building. Seeing me, Mike approached with a smirk.
Right. A mere contractor like you wouldn't defy my orders. Huh, yesterday must have been some joke. I'll hire you on a long-term contract again, so be thankful.
Mike started talking about my salary as a contractor and future work as if he had the right to decide. Without any contract documents, nevertheless, the employment terms Mike mentioned were outrageously bad. He even proposed a salary lower than what I had made previously as a contractor, which was absurdly unfair. I sighed heavily at Mike's unreasonable behavior and pointed towards the company I was now working for. I'm about to head into work, so excuse me. As I tried to enter the building where my current company's office was located, Mike grabbed my arm.
Hey, not that way. There's plenty of work here, come on.
Despite my repeated explanations, Mike just didn't get it.
Your job isn't over there.
No, as I've said many times, I'm working at this company now.
But this is the building where that subsidiary of the major corporation is located, right? So, you're saying you work here as a temp for one of the companies in this building?
Frustrated by Mike's condescending attitude, I sighed again and slowly explained. Not at all. I'm now working as a full-time employee at one of the major corporation's subsidiaries in this building, which you should know.
What? That's impossible. There's no way someone who was just a contractor until recently could get a full-time position at such a renowned company.
Confused, Mike pulled my arm harder. I was dragged back outside again. I had enough and shook off Mike's hand. That's why I said, if it's about contracting for support, I've sent an estimate. It seemed Mike finally understood where I was working. Stunned at my words, he just stood there. My working for this major corporation was definitely a result of a chance connection. After being fired and feeling lost, a company I had inconvenienced due to Mike's unreasonable demands contacted me. I was nervous about possibly overlooking something in my previous error-fixing work. But the company's president personally thanked me, bringing me to tears. Noticing my situation, the president invited me over, and upon hearing about my sudden layoff, introduced me to a troubled project at a large tech company. After quickly completing the task, a manager from the major company offered me a job. Now, as a full-time employee, I was busy handling significant projects. Right after joining the company, I was given a major project to handle, so I was receiving calls from Mike and John during busy work hours. Mike, still not believing me, kept insisting on rehiring me as a contractor. I mentioned my current salary, which seemed to shock Mike, probably earning more than him. If he still wanted to hire me, I handed him the contract invoice I had with me, marked with the major company's name and the president's signature. Mike was speechless and dejectedly returned to his company. Working in the field of system development, I've heard bad rumors about John. It seemed he's been repeatedly taking on reckless contracts and failing to fulfill them. Mike, who's always making empty promises, continued to ignore untouched projects and repeatedly accepted contracts they couldn't fulfill. As a result, John's company went bankrupt. Not only have contract workers been getting laid off due to John's selfish behavior, but even full-timers are quitting, and it seemed like bankruptcy was only a matter of time. With John's company going bankrupt, there was a sudden influx of requests from the companies that had previously designated me for their orders, and my workplace became extremely busy. Successfully completing these tasks brought a sense of fulfillment and value. After successfully completing the sudden increase in projects, I continued to tackle numerous large projects afterward. Recognized for my achievements within the company, I was able to secure a promotion and a transfer to headquarters. One day, while working on detailed tasks at headquarters, I requested temporary staff. To my surprise, Mike showed up. Mike's work on system debugging was meticulous, finding errors I missed. Despite not expecting much for that Mike, to be honest, praising his work, Mike responded with a slight sarcasm. In continuing to assign work to Mike on temporary basis, despite his consistently brash and abrasive demeanor, his outspoken opinions gained him a reputation within the company. Continuing to request Mike as a temp, he revealed new talents, despite his usual arrogance. Mike gradually started to change his attitude and language to a more serious tone. Now, all the various events that happened at that company are fond memories. If it hadn't been for John's company taking me in, I wouldn't be where I am today. Now, with Mike's help, I'm working hard every day to be of service to many people.
My name is John Carter. I wasn't born into wealth, but I was raised in a modest and warm family. My dad worked for a financial company, and my mom devoted herself to taking care of our home. Having my parents around was a great source of strength for me. Every time I saw my family supporting each other, I quietly felt grateful for my life. Influenced by my dad, during high school, I started getting interested in stock trading. Of course, I didn't have much money, so I saved up my part-time job earnings and started with $3,000. Getting into stocks at that age drew some attention from those around me. The world of stocks was a new source of excitement for me, as I had an average grade in both academics and athletics. However, it seemed that my classmate, Mike, didn't take well to my success. I heard that Mike's dad also worked in banking, but unlike my dad, he was with a major, well-known bank. Mike, who grew up privileged, often displayed a confident and condescending attitude. His gaze was always high, and he looked at me with disdain. He became self-satisfied by considering himself elite and looking down on others. So, my getting attention for my stock trading probably didn't sit well with him. This attitude was obvious in conversation with him. One day at lunch break, while I was hanging out with my friends in the schoolyard, Mike approached us.
Hey John, what are you doing here? Trying to show off with your little stock investment game again?
When I turned around, he had a smug smile on his face. I responded coolly, without taking the bait. Nothing much, just talking about a TV show I watched yesterday. Is there a problem with that? But Mike wasn't satisfied with my calm demeanor and threw more insulting words at me.
You're a liar. I could hear it from afar. Why are you interested in stocks at your age? Focus on more realistic things instead.
His words dripped with condescension. His such attitude was an everyday occurrence for me. He seemed to assert his presence by imposing his views and provoking others. I kept my composure, not responding to his provocations. I thought it foolish to waste energy on someone like him. Perhaps that's why Mike persistently bothered me. What do you mean by realistic things? I asked without taking the bait.
Well, something that clearly shows human excellence. Let's have a score duel on the next test.
I don't mind. But what will you do if you lose?
There's no way I could lose to you. But if I lose, I'll do anything you want.
He said confidently. The score duel ended in a sweeping victory for Mike. After all, Mike spent most of his after-school hours with tutors and studying while I was engrossed in stocks and hanging out with my friends. Mike boastfully spoke of his victory, but to be honest, it didn't really matter to me, so I just gave him some words of praise and went back to chatting with my friends. Mike often boasted about what he had, showing off expensive shoes and the latest gadgets to assert his superiority. By then, however, I had earned enough from stocks to afford those things any time. So, his attitude felt merely empty to me. I tried to keep my distance from the troublesome Mike as much as possible. However, he resisted this distancing, becoming even more persistent in bothering me and those around me. His provocations and boasting escalated, and I began to feel uncomfortable in his presence. So, when graduation came, while it was sad to part ways with friends, the joy of finally getting away from Mike was greater. After high school, I went to college to study economics. I didn't know what job I would end up with, but I intended to stay involved with investments in some form, so I looked forward to deepening my knowledge. As expected, my college economics classes significantly broadened my perspective as an investor. Learning the basics of macroeconomics and microeconomics and understanding the effects of various factors on markets and businesses allowed me to make more accurate investment decisions. Additionally, taking specialized classes in finance and investment theory, I learned about the importance of risk management and asset allocation. For someone like me, who generally favored aggressive investments, the concept of risk hedging was an eye-opener. Through studying past financial market trends and investor behaviors, I acquired methods for analyzing market characteristics and fluctuating factors. This knowledge and skill set proved to be very useful in my stock investment endeavors. During my college years, I joined an investment club to deepen my discussions and exchange information about investments. For me, the attraction of this college was to have such a unique club. In conversations with these members, we passionately, and sometimes humorously, discussed stock market trends and investment strategies every day.
Recently, I've been using technical analysis to predict stock market trends. Using moving averages and Bollinger Bands makes it easier to spot trend changes, support lines, and resistance lines.
One of the club members would say, and another friend responded,
True, technical analysis is useful for grasping market trends, but don't overlook the fundamentals, right? Analyzing a company's financial health, performance, and industry trends to assess the fair value of a stock is crucial. That's why I'm more of a fundamentals guy.
Then I would chime in with my opinion. Having such discussions about investments was refreshing and appealing to me. That's probably why the 4 years of college flew by in no time. However, there was one event in my college days that had nothing to do with a college. It was on my 21st birthday. As my 21st birthday approached, I prepared with my family and friends for the day. I was looking forward to my big 21st birthday party with my family and friends. I arrived at the party venue and waited for my friends. Celebrating with friends I hadn't seen in a while, I was filled with a strange feeling, wondering if I had somewhat matured. I was having a great time with my friends.
Man, we really have a lot of memories, don't we? By the way, John, are you still into stocks?
Yo, I've continued since high school, though the amount I handle has changed quite a bit.
How much are you managing now?
Well, I started with a few $1,000s, but now it's over $1 million.
What, really? Hey, everyone, listen, John is...
Hey, stop it. I don't want people to know I'm doing stocks now, and I don't want to brag about being successful.
Why not? You could boast about it, and it would attract girls.
That's what I hate. If people start flocking to me for money, that's the end of it. I'd rather be underestimated.
Man, you're still weird as ever.
My friend continued to mutter something. Then, suddenly, a familiar face from high school appeared. Though not a pleasant memory for me.
Hey, long time no see, John.
I inwardly grimaced as his voice reached my ears. Mike's manner of speaking still carried the same arrogant air as before. Well, Mike, right, long time no see. I responded with minimal courtesy, but I felt complicated about seeing Mike again. Mike was someone who antagonized me in high school and frequently harassed me. Whether he remembered that or not, I was slightly irritated by his audacity to speak to me as if nothing had happened.
Long time since high school, huh? So, John, what are you up to now?
Mike asked with a faint smile. Me. I'm just attending a lower-tier college while working part-time.
Is that so? You don't make much money anyway, do you?
Mike's words were tinged with sarcasm, but I answered calmly. Yeah, it's just pocket money. So, what have you been up to since graduating high school? I wasn't really interested, but now that I'm officially an adult, I felt obliged to exchange pleasantries.
Me? I'm a leader in the tennis club. Met my girlfriend there, so yeah, things are going smoothly. How about you, John? Got a girlfriend? Oh, maybe I shouldn't have asked.
As you'd expect, I don't have one. It's hard to find a woman who wants to be with a guy like me. Though I said that, I've actually dated over 5 people since starting college. Talking about such things to Mike wouldn't benefit me at all.
You really are a pitiful guy, huh? I'll introduce you to a girl next time. So, you must be thinking about jobs now, right? What are you planning to do?
Well, I don't know. I don't really have anything I want to do, so maybe I'll just be a part-time worker. As if calling out my bluff, a friend next to me glared at me, but I pretended not to notice and looked back at Mike.
Aren't you miserable with yourself? If I were you, John, I'd be in despair. Well, I've already got an offer from a major bank, so I only have hope.
Wow, that's impressive. I'm really envious. Maybe I'll catch some of your crumbs someday. Let's catch up again sometime. I ended the conversation with him and returned to chatting with my other friends. Mike still had a smug look on his face, but his ego seemed well satisfied. This reunion with Mike was meaningless to me, and it painfully reminded me that nothing had changed in our relationship. Thus, my 21st birthday party was slightly marred by Mike's presence. Back in college, perhaps due to lingering resentment towards Mike, I immersed myself even more in the world of stocks. My stock investments steadily yielded results. Between classes and club activities, I tracked market trends and sought investment opportunities. As a result, my assets grew steadily. Especially at one point, a significant profit was made due to a surge in the stock price of a particular company, which had developed a new technology and was attracting market attention. I had assessed the potential of this technology and bought shares, which led to a rapid increase in my wealth when the stock price soared.
Lately, tech stocks have been doing well. John, have you noticed any companies in particular?
A club member asked me. Yeah, recently, fields like artificial intelligence and cloud computing seem to be thriving. Particularly, a startup has developed innovative technology that's making a significant impact on the market. I've actually made a decent profit from it. I shared, and the members listened with keen interest.
That's fascinating. So, technological innovation is key to investment. I should have jumped on that earlier.
True, but we also need to be cautious of sudden crashes. The members nodded to my words and deepened the discussion. That was how we exchanged information and shared ideas in the club at the time. Before I knew it, by the time of my graduation, my assets had grown to over $4 million. This was a great source of confidence and achievement for me, broadening my prospects for the future. Interestingly, A large portion of that wealth was deposited with the major bank where Mike was employed. The thought of it being Mike's workplace was somewhat bitter, but I continued using it as the funds flow was smoothest with that bank. Eventually, I graduated from college. I considered working at a securities or investment firm, but that would have restricted my personal stock trading. So, I decided not to take a job and live as a full-time trader instead. As an investor, my days were busy, constantly assessing the market and strategizing. Using various trading methods like day trading and swing trading, I continued to accumulate profits and grow my wealth. By the age of 28, my total assets had reached several tens of million dollars. Of course, there were tough times. One day, a significant challenge hit my career as an investor. A sharp decline in the stock prices I held caused substantial losses, drastically reducing my wealth. This sudden downturn deeply affected me, contrasting starkly with my previous successes. To recover the losses, I conducted thorough market analysis and revised my strategies, persevering day by day. However, the market remained tough, and my efforts were slow to pay off. During these difficult times, I battled with anxiety and self-doubt. However, I remained determined to overcome adversity, never giving up and continually moving forward. To recover the losses and achieve success again, I motivated myself and resolved to keep facing the market. I believed that adversity was an opportunity for growth, and that these experiences would further refine my career as an investor. Eventually, the market improved, aided by government support, and I managed to overcome the crisis. In fact, after surmounting these difficulties, my assets recorded their most significant growth. Through these ups and downs, I managed to reach where I am today. During my busy days as a trader, I received a letter. Upon opening it, I found it was an invitation to a wedding from Mike. Receiving the wedding invitation stirred complex emotions within me. Memories of past conflicts with Mike flashed through my mind, causing inner turmoil about attending the wedding. Wondering why he would invite me, I called a high school friend to discuss it. "Hey, I got a wedding invitation from Mike. Did you get one too?"
No, I haven't received anything. Maybe he likes you.
If he liked me, he wouldn't have behaved like that. I wonder if he wants me there just to show off.
That might be overthinking it. Just go. If anything happens, you can always leave.
Yeah, you're right. It's an invitation to a celebration, after all. It would be rude to outright reject it. While agreeing with my friend, I continued to harbor uneasy feelings. The fear that my relationship with Mike might reignite gnawed at me. On the wedding day, I felt a mix of anxiety and anticipation as I headed to the venue. Mike might have matured and reflected on his past behavior. But knowing him, significant change seemed unlikely. These mixed feelings of anxiety and expectation swirled within me as I faced the prospect of meeting him again. But my apprehensions proved correct. Mike was as unpleasant as ever. His arrogance and presumptuous words remained unchanged, casting a shadow over my mood. At the round table with high school classmates, none of my friends were present. Though others tried to engage me in conversation, it was clear they were all close, leaving me feeling isolated as I mechanically consumed the food and drank. During the reception, Mike came to our table to pour drinks and looked down on me with a cold gaze and a smug smile.
So, John, you actually came.
I was taken aback, considering he was the one who invited me. What do you mean? I thought I was invited by you, Mike.
Yeah, I wanted to introduce you to my friends.
Friends?
Yes, everyone here. Listen, everyone.
Mike got the attention of the attendees. Then he spoke in a mean voice.
This is John. He used to play big with stock investments in high school. Funny, right? Now he's just a part-time worker. He should have invested in himself instead of stocks.
Mike laughed derisively, and his friends hesitantly chuckled in agreement.
He really is a miserable guy, still deluded about being superior, and now he's hitting 30. Meanwhile, I'm working at a major bank and have a lovely wife. Life's full of lessons. I hope you guys don't end up like John. That's why I invited him as a cautionary tale. Isn't it good to be useful to others?
Mike sneered at me. So, Mike invited me to his wedding to ridicule me in front of his friends. His words deeply hurt me, and my discomfort intensified. My anger enveloped me, and I wanted to shout and leave immediately. But considering Mike was the day's focus and the ceremony was supported by many people, I refrained from reacting impulsively and maintained composure. And I smiled back at Mike's disgusting attitude and decided to patiently endure the moment. However, my composed attitude seemed to irritate him even more, and he stayed at my table, continuing his taunts.
Bet you've never had champagne like this, right? Might not even suit your taste, so don't gulp it down. It's unseemly. Did you rush your meal? Your plate is empty already. Don't be so desperate just because you're not used to good food. Want me to share mine?
While enduring Mike's taunts, no one here is at your level, so you must be bored without anyone to talk to, right? Why not pick a gift then? Oh, but don't take someone else's, one per person, okay. I harbored a quiet anger inside but maintained a calm exterior. I didn't react to his insulting words, focusing on controlling my emotions around the other guests.
Man, you're not fun at all, not reacting to anything. All right, I'm tired of teasing you. I've got your gift money anyway. You can go home now. It's troublesome having a poor person around.
I had reached my limit, unable to bear any more. I was about to leave, feeling that my presence was benefiting no one. Just then, a man approached and spoke to me.
Are you John?
It was Tom, a bank executive from the bank where I deposited a significant amount of money. I had spoken with him before because of the large amount I managed there. He was knowledgeable about investments and felt like an older friend with whom I enjoy discussing economic matters. Why is Tom here? Seeing Tom here was not surprising since Mike worked at the bank where I deposited my funds, and Tom was his superior. Hi, Tom. What a surprise to see you here.
I didn't expect to meet you at this place.
So, Mike is one of your employees, right? Are you attending as his superior?
Yes, I am his direct boss. I've been looking after him since he joined, and the woman he's marrying is also our employee. I wouldn't say I'm the matchmaker, but I have a close connection, so I was invited.
Do you know John? Tom?
Mike, unable to hide his surprise, interrupted our conversation.
Know him. We've been acquainted for over 5 years. But Mike, I didn't realize you knew John. I don't think you ever had the opportunity to deal with John at the bank.
Mike seemed puzzled by the mention of deal with John at the bank.
Deal with John. We're not acquaintances from work. Actually, we were high school classmates. It's embarrassing to see someone of his age as a part-time worker. But why would Tom know someone like John?
Upon hearing Mike's words, Tom's expression turned stern. Tom then asked Mike with a slightly stronger tone of voice,
John is part-time worker. What are you talking about? And calling it embarrassing. What's with your attitude?
Deep wrinkles formed between Tom's brows. Under Tom's sharp gaze, Mike seemed flustered.
It's just, he used to pretend to be an investor in high school, but now he's just a part-time worker. Isn't that pathetic?
I don't understand what you're saying. John is currently engaged in stock investments. He's one of our bank's premium clients, having deposited a significant amount with us. The exact amount is confidential, but if John were to withdraw his deposit now, it would affect our bank's cash flow significantly. Do you understand that, Mike?
Hearing this, Mike's eyes widened, and he stammered a response.
That can't be true, because...
At this point, it became difficult to keep hiding the truth. I preferred not to make my wealth public, but to resolve the situation, it seemed necessary. Moreover, reaching my limit of patience, I thought it was time to teach Mike a lesson. Sorry, Mike, but it's true. I've always said I was a part-time worker, but that was a lie. I'm actually a full-time investor, doing quite well. I've even been interviewed for magazines as an investment professional. Haven't you seen it?
Are you kidding me? You're pulling a prank to surprise me, right? Wow, you got me.
Mike looked at Tom with a tight smile. But Tom's expression only grew sterner. It's not a prank. I didn't want to boast, but I guess I have to show you. Want to see the amount I manage and how much I've deposited in your bank? I pulled out my smartphone, opened the app, and showed Mike my account balances. Upon seeing the amount, Mike's eyes widened, and he began to tremble. His complexion grew increasingly pale, creating a striking contrast with the tuxedo he was wearing.
What? How is this possible?
It seems you've misunderstood something till now, Mike. John is far more successful than you think. But even so, your behavior towards him has been unacceptable. Have you done anything else rude?
Faced with the question, Mike likely reflected on his past treatment of me. He muttered incoherently, struggling to find the right words.
It appears you did. Do you understand now how accomplished John is as an investor and how embarrassing your conduct has been?
Mike replied in a fading voice.
Yes.
Then you should apologize right away, Mike. Otherwise, both you and our bank might suffer.
Mike took those strong words from Tom and apologized to me.
John, I'm sorry for everything I've done. Please don't withdraw your deposit.
Don't worry. I've been trading stocks for a long time. Controlling emotions isn't that hard for me. And it's true. The food and drinks at the ceremony were good. My words made Mike feel at ease. But listen, not just for today. You need to reflect on your behavior moving forward. Break down that mountain-high pride of yours, or you'll surely lose what's important. More important than a prime customer of your workplace, right? Mike gave a small nod in response to my words of reminder. He then began to make his way around to the other tables to say hello. He had a dark look on his face, not at all like the groom for his big day.
Oh no, I never thought Mike would treat John like a part-timer. Mike is in trouble.
Well, I called myself that, so it's not surprising that he would believe that.
Is that so? It shows a severe lack of judgment. He got the job through parental connections, and his shallowness is evident.
Looks like you have some tough training ahead for him.
I am concerned about his future. Perhaps I should send him to a regional branch for some real experience.
That might be a good idea. I agreed, and we shared a laugh. Over drinks, we talked about the recent economic situation and the future of growing companies in the United States. I realized again that engaging with people through the investment topic suits me best. I was reminded of that. I declined the invitation to the after-party, opting to catch a taxi home. The night view on the way home from the wedding brought a quiet calm to my heart. The view from the car window was like a reflection of my inner self. It was true that the various emotions I had experienced during my reunion with Mike had shaken me to the core. Amid the flickering city lights and quietly shining stars, I found myself pondering my life. I realized that I was now 28 years old. It was the age at which my classmates were getting married. Since my college days until now, it's not that I haven't had relationships with women. I've had my fair share of dating and romantic experiences, at least I believe so. Yet my heart has always been dominated by stock investing. It was more selfish than any woman I had ever met, and I was unable to read its feelings. However, I was crazy about such a stock, who smiled kindly at me as much as I faced it. Meanwhile, my parents have aged. My dad, who used to talk about stocks with me all the time, nowadays is always talking about how much he wants to see his grandchildren. Considering this, I realized that thinking about my marriage and children is something I should do. However, first things first, I need to find a girlfriend. The journey ahead seems long. I thought to myself, and laughed a little. The quiet of the night outside the taxi warmly enveloped my heart. With such expectations for the future, and a little bit of anxiety mixed in, I made up my mind to walk down the road to that future.
My name is Emily. I'm a 21-year-old woman who loves baking. Ever since I can remember, I've had a sweet tooth, often asking my baking enthusiast mom to make me loads of treats. Influenced by her, I got hooked on baking in middle school and dreamt of becoming a pastry chef someday. However, during high school, I suffered from unexplained health issues and had to repeatedly go in and out of the hospital, leading to my dropping out. I stepped away from baking to focus on treatment. At 19, after completing treatment and feeling healthy, I returned home and resumed baking as a hobby, a kind of rehabilitation before rejoining society. Now, I'm enjoying every day, working part-time and sharing photos of my creations on my blog and social media. One day, while baking as usual, I received a call from my mom's workplace. She had suddenly collapsed. Rushing to the hospital, I found her conscious. The doctor said she'd collapsed from exhaustion. As a precaution, she was admitted to the hospital for tests to check for any other abnormalities. Later, it was revealed she had cerebrovascular disease. Discussing this with my mom and dad, we decided to proceed with the surgery. During our talk, my mom mentioned noticing symptoms a while back, but avoided the hospital, not wanting to worry us. She had always cared for me during my health struggles, likely contributing to her own health decline. Financial struggles, intensified by my medical bills, had also kept her from seeking care earlier. Feeling responsible, I decided to cover all her medical expenses. Despite my dad saying I didn't have to, I insisted. I was no longer a child. I was young and healthy, and I wanted to repay the kindness she had shown me. So I took on the cost of her hospital stay, surgery, treatment, and rehabilitation. After that, I went home and checked my bank book. I calculated the hospital expenses for my mom and other costs, remembering that I also needed some money for myself. I decided to withdraw all of it together. When I added up everything, it turned out to be a considerable sum. So, before withdrawing, I thought I'd better inform the bank, planning to take out the money later. I took out my smartphone and called the bank listed in my book. A male bank employee answered the call.
Hello, Saltville Bank.
Oh, sorry. My name is Emily. I need to withdraw $20,000 from my deposit account. I'll visit later. Could you have the cash ready? There was a bit of surprise in the banker's voice as he responded, $20,000. I felt a bit anxious, but confirmed, yes. After a pause, he spoke in an almost exasperated tone, as if to say, oh, bye. All right, okay. What's with this guy? I was puzzled by his reaction, but tried to explain the purpose. It's for my mom's hospital bills, and also. Before I could finish, he interrupted. Yeah, got it. We'll have it ready, come by later. And then he hung up abruptly. I was taken aback by the phone etiquette. What just happened? Despite a bad feeling, it seemed like they would prepare the money, so I decided to go and withdraw it as planned. 3 days later, I went to the bank. I took a number and waited until my number was called. Approaching the counter, I saw the male bank employee smiling. But as soon as he saw my face and outfit, his expression changed, showing obvious displeasure. Feeling uncomfortable, I heard him ask in a tone hardly suitable for customer service, "So, what do you need?" while squinting his eyes lazily. I'm Emily, the one who called the other day. I came to withdraw $20,000. I said to the bank employee. He stared at me for a moment and replied with a lack of enthusiasm, "Oh, right?" Between that phone call and this guy, what's up with this bank? I kept my cool, despite feeling a bit irritated. I called earlier to have the $20,000 prepared for withdrawal, as I was told. The banker pointed towards a chair with a smirk and said, "Okay, we'll prepare it now. Please wait over there." The exchange was surprisingly brief. Normally, there would be some procedures like identity verification when withdrawing a large sum at the counter, but there was none of that. Just a quick confirmation. Is it really okay to be this casual about it? I wondered, feeling uneasy again as I quietly waited for my name to be called. Resolved to leave as soon as I got the money. An hour passed. My name still hadn't been called. Does it usually take this long, or are they just really busy? Looking around, there weren't many customers. And the bank itself wasn't very large, so there weren't many employees either. It didn't seem particularly busy. But that was just my impression. Maybe they were swamped behind the scenes. The male banker, who had been at the counter earlier, was still there doing some work and attending to customers. I sighed and continued to wait. Another hour went by. The number of customers had clearly decreased, and the staff seemed to be taking breaks gradually. Yet my name was still not called. Growing anxious, I looked for the male banker. He had left the counter a few minutes earlier and was nowhere to be seen. He didn't go home, did he? Just then, he re-entered the bank, appearing quite cheerful, perhaps after a meal break. As he passed by, I decided to speak up. "Excuse me, I'm Emily, the one you helped at the counter earlier. Is the $20,000 cash ready?"
What? Oh.
His cheerful demeanor instantly soured as he coldly brushed me off. "We're still preparing it. Please wait a little longer." "Okay, understood." Sitting back down quietly. As the banker walked away, scratching his head, he muttered something completely unprofessional under his breath.
Geez, poor people should just wait quietly.
I was shocked by his words. "What?" I asked, thinking I had misheard. But he ignored me and walked away. Did he just call me Pua and tell me to wait quietly? The phone call from the other day, and now this banker's attitude and words, were all unbelievable. I was getting close to losing my temper. I wanted to go home before that happened. But first, I needed to collect my money. I continued to wait, and another 2 hours passed. The bank's closing time had arrived. As I sat there quietly, not yet having left, the same male banker approached me coldly. "Customer, we're closing now. Please leave." "But I've been waiting here for 4 hours for the money to be ready." His reply stunned me.
What? You're still waiting? We haven't prepared anything.
What? What? They didn't prepare it. I exclaimed in disbelief. The past 4 hours felt like a complete waste. My anger erupted. "What do you mean you haven't prepared for it? I told you, didn't I, that I wanted to withdraw $20,000. That's why I've been waiting here for 4 hours. I mentioned this on the phone to your bank employee." The banker laughed and said,
"Oh, that call. It was me. You answered it."
"What?" I was surprised. Now that he mentioned it, the voice and attitude did match. But I had never imagined it was the same person. If so, he should have known about the phone call and could have prepared in advance. Then why didn't you prepare it in advance? You're the one who said on the phone, "We'll prepare it, come by later."
Well, I thought it was a prank or a scam. Your voice sounded too young for such an amount. Come on, you're young. If a kid asks for $20,000, you'd think it's a joke, right? Being a banker, you become sensitive to these things.
He shrugged off my question with a laugh. His attitude and words infuriated me. I didn't ask for a handout. I said I wanted to withdraw. You're impossible to talk to. Get your supervisor here, please. His response was smug. Well, the branch manager and department head are both not here right now. So the highest authority here is me, unfortunately. He flaunted his name badge, which read John, the acting branch manager. Acting branch manager. John. This person, who had been rude on the phone and at the counter, who made me wait for hours, and then insulted me, saying, "Poor people should just wait." This guy is the acting branch manager. John, you're the acting branch manager, right? Why would you treat a customer like me this way? Making me wait and then turning me away? And your attitude and insults. I'm not saying the customer is always right, but this is too much. John pointed at me, sneering. Come on, you're obviously poor. Look at your clothes, they're all tattered. Tattered clothes? How rude. Sure, I didn't dress up since I was only going to the bank, and my clothes might have a small tear, but they're not that bad. To be honest, I've always been a bit careless about my appearance. I'm meticulous when it comes to baking, measuring ingredients, and designing, but I'm quite casual about clothes and makeup. Trying to contain my anger, I listened as John continued.
Besides, you look too young. No way a person your age has $20,000, and you're the same person who called. I thought it was just a prank, so I figured I'd teach you a lesson. You've learned your lesson, right? Now go home. We're busy here.
John crossed his arms in irritation. It's not a lie. I do have $20,000. Please check my account. I showed him my bank book, but John dismissed it. Enough. Go home, kid. And that bank book is probably just a toy. If you really had $20,000, you'd be working hard and taking care of your parents. Leave now, or I'll call the police. It's true. Frustrated with John's disbelief, I decided to disclose my entire fortune in my bank account. I didn't want to say it out loud because of the amount, but I thought maybe the sheer size of it would jog someone's memory. It's not just $20,000. I have $300 million. John burst into laughter.
What? $300 million? Nice joke. If you had that much, you could live comfortably without a care.
It's true. I've deposited $300 million in this bank.
Yeah, you must feel so good now, bragging about it. Now go home. Stop lying and bothering us at work.
My idea had failed. Sure, this bank must have many clients with millions in their accounts. I thought they'd be aware of such large deposits since they often call about insurance and other sales. Then John tried to forcibly remove me from the bank. Feeling helpless and at my limit, I finally snapped. Fine, I understand. I won't come here again, nor will I use your services, and I will withdraw the $300 million I've deposited here and transfer it to another bank. Laughing, John said, "Go ahead, try it. I'll be waiting to see that." He then pushed me out and locked the bank doors. Just watch. I won't let this go. Determined, I went back to the bank later to transfer my $300 million. Fortunately, John wasn't there. I approached the counter where a smiling female banker was waiting. "I'd like to transfer all my funds to another bank," I said. The banker started checking my account. Her smile faded instantly. "Please wait a moment," she said in a panic, rushing to the back room. Then, John approached me, stomping over from the bank's entrance. "Hey, you're back to joking around." Apparently back from his break. Reeking of garlic.
Back for more pranks. Just go home.
I'll leave, but only after transferring my $300 million. As I brushed off John's attitude coldly, he burst into raucous laughter again.
Still going on about that, huh? Stop lying. A poor person like you with $300 million.
Miss Emily, what's happening here?
His mocking words were cut short as a man came rushing from the back of the bank.
Branch manager, you're back.
John's arrogant demeanor instantly changed, and he began to bow deeply.
I just got back from the main office. I came to check if everything was all right in my absence.
The branch manager had just returned from a trip and had been resting in the back room.
More importantly, it's a pleasure to meet you. I'm the branch manager here, Michael. Thank you for your patronage.
Michael bowed deeply in front of me. John looked utterly bewildered. Michael, please raise your head. What brings you here? I asked, slightly taken aback. Michael, still bowing low, said, I heard you wanted to withdraw the entire amount of $300 million and transfer it to another bank. Then John looked at me in shock.
Why would you want to do that? Was there any inconvenience caused by our bank?
Yikes.
John's face turned sour. Actually, Michael, the other day.
No, branch manager, nothing happened.
John interrupted, sweating profusely, trying to stop me from speaking, determined not to let me speak. Before I could retort, Michael scolded John. John, how dare you interrupt a customer? With John shrinking back, I told Michael everything that had happened. By the time I finished, John was pale and sweating profusely. Hearing my story, Michael exploded in anger. John, how could you treat a customer like this? John, still in denial, insisted, I didn't do it, she's making it all up.
Emily wouldn't lie. Besides, we have security cameras. If you keep denying, we'll have to check the footage.
Oh no.
Realizing the presence of security cameras, our argument had unfolded in the bank just before closing time, so it was probably all caught on camera. John became desperate. Damn it, why do I have to suffer because of her? She comes in dressed like that. So young, I thought it was a scam. Also said, normally, if you have that much money, you'd wear more expensive clothes. You're making things complicated. He's blaming me for dressing poorly and being young. I wanted to retort, but remained silent as John had virtually admitted his guilt. Michael, furious, said, Don't call Emily her. Do you even know who she is?
Who is she?
This lady is a popular sweets designer and blogger known as Real Sweet.
What?
Being called a sweets designer feels a bit exaggerated. But in reality, I am actively blogging about baking. I started this after finishing my treatment for an illness. What began as a rehabilitation activity turned into something more when the sweets I designed during my hospital stay went viral on my blog and social media. Since then, the sweets I make have been getting more and more attention, and my followers have surpassed 7 digits. Thanks to this, I've been featured on TV, reading recipe books, and earned income through blog and video advertising. The part-time job I mentioned earlier was actually stock investments, which also turned out to be very successful. So, at the young age of 21, I was in possession of $300 million.
No way. Real Sweet. I'm a huge fan.
John, realizing who I was, broke down in tears. He was a fan. Unbelievable. Since I blogged under Real Sweet and never revealed my real name or face, he must not have recognized me. It's a shame losing a fan over something like this.
What are you talking about? All of this was explained to you when you were appointed as the acting branch manager. Moreover, Emily is a highly valued customer of Saltville Bank. She's also the daughter of a friend of our bank's president, Saltville. Didn't I explain that? You didn't forget, did you?
What?
John looked utterly shocked, hearing this for the first time. Yes, my father has been a long-time friend of Saltville, the head of this bank. I don't remember, but as a child, I apparently played with Saltville's children. When I was repeatedly hospitalized, Saltville was the first to lend us money. That's why I kept a large sum in this bank. I didn't know I was such a valued customer, but it's strange John didn't know.
I'm so sorry. I had no idea you were such an important person.
A poor little child, was it?
I'm terribly sorry.
John turned even paler and began to prostrate himself on the floor. Maybe that was a bit mean. But I think a little payback is okay, right? After all the trouble he caused me.
Emily, I'm so sorry for this ordeal. John, bow lower, apologize more sincerely.
I deeply apologize.
Apologize more. And you still reek of garlic. How many times have I told you not to eat strong-smelling food during work? You're making our customers uncomfortable.
I'm sorry.
After that, I canceled the transfer of the $300 million. I finally withdrew the $20,000 I needed and successfully paid for my mother's hospital expenses. As for John, word of the incident reached Saltville, and he was severely reprimanded. The security cameras in the bank had recorded everything, and further investigation revealed that John had been treating other customers similarly. There had been complaints, but John had threatened other bank employees to keep quiet. Because of his misdeeds, John was naturally demoted from acting branch manager. John was demoted from acting branch manager to a regular employee and sent to the main office for rigorous retraining with new recruits. As for my mother, she successfully underwent surgery and is now energetically focusing on her rehabilitation. I continue to be a blogger and spend my days immersed in baking. Today, I'm creating a special treat for my mother's next visit to the hospital. I can already imagine her happy face. I can't wait. With these thoughts, I kept on whipping the cream for my creation.
Oh look, that kid's ridiculous face, just like high school dropout. I guess dropout parents have dumb kid too.
The classmate, Alice, from high school who always looked down on me, leaned in to get a closer look at Mike's face. She graduated from Harvard, and beautiful, but with a terrible personality. That's what Alice said while looking at Mike's face. I could tolerate being ridiculed myself, but when she insulted my son Mike, I couldn't hold back anymore. Despite trying to keep my cool, I snapped. High school education doesn't matter. Just because you went to Harvard doesn't give you the right to say such things to my son. Watching this, Mike said in a cold voice, "Dad, is she Alice, right? Should we fire her?" Mike might look like a regular 10-year-old, but he's far from ordinary. Alice would soon realize this too. My name is John Smith. Probably just a very average 8th grader. I'm on the soccer team, sometimes on reserve, sometimes not. Unlike the Golden Boys, I don't have a girlfriend. I am just a really ordinary mid-schooler. I had one thing I was good at, and one thing I wasn't. First, my strength was math. I'm not generally good at studies, but for some reason, Math just makes sense to me. I can solve even the most complex problems easily. I was the only one in my grade to solve a particularly tough problem, keeping my math grades at the top since I started school. What I especially loved was binary numbers. There's something so much fun about counting in a system not based on 10, almost like a game. On the other hand, my weakness, or rather the person I struggled with, was a classmate since elementary, the beautiful Alice Johnson. For some reason, she was regular with others but unfriendly to me. We used to play together and visit each other's houses in lower grades of elementary, but she suddenly turned cold around the time of a school trip, saying mean things only to me.
Hey John, stop slacking off and take out the trash.
She said that even though I wasn't the only one slacking.
John, stop daydreaming and turn off the burner. You're so useless.
Or, during science class, she'd always complain to me even though everyone could shut off the alcohol burner. And then, I can touch that alcohol burner after John touched it, as if I was something dirty. I wanted to talk back, but Alice was strong-willed and pretty and at the top of the class, like the queen bee. I always ended up taking her words without a reply. I thought I'd one day show her up, but math was the only thing I could beat her in. And Alice was pretty good at math too, top in our class for overall grades. All through middle school, she targeted me. And then, we both ended up in the same college prep high school. So, I started high school juggling the same strength and weakness. Then, in sophomore year, my life took a 180-degree turn. My dad, who was the family's mainstay, passed away. He loved fly fishing, but one morning, he took a wrong turn on a mountain road while fishing and fell off a cliff with his car. Then he was deceased. That happened changed everything for our otherwise plain but peaceful family life. I'll never forget my mom's face when the local police called, nor my dad's pale face at the hospital. With my dad gone, my mom, a former housewife, had to start working as a contract. But the shock of losing my dad meant she often fell ill and couldn't hold down a job for long. She'd work a bit, then be bedridden. She started working again, but got sick within 3 months. I couldn't put her through that anymore. I decided to give up on college. Also, I dropped out of high school and started working immediately to support her. So, I want to let her be a housewife again. I made up my mind the 3rd time she fell ill. Alice, who still constantly berated me, confronted me again when I decided to quit high school.
What are you thinking? Are you out of your mind? A high school dropout won't get you anywhere. At least finish high school or society won't take you seriously. You have just 1 year left. Go back to high school. Being a dropout is just crazy.
Alice vehemently opposed my decision, but that wasn't going to change my mind. Then, I left high school by the weekend. After quitting high school, I first started working part-time at a nearby convenience store. Since I was focusing on studying subjects, this was my first experience in the workforce. It was exhausting but exhilarating, and now that I had decided to support our family, there was no turning back. As I get used to the convenience store job, I also started working nights at an Italian restaurant. My mom, seeing me occasionally come home with burns, would cry and worry about my irregular lifestyle. But not everything about my part-time life was tough. During this time, I also had the opportunity to talk with a woman. She was Erica and worked as a hall staff member at the Italian restaurant. She was attending a well-known local state university to study robotics engineering. Erica and I started chatting in the quieter moments at the restaurant. I found her college lecture stories about robotics fascinating, as they had similarities with mathematics. Gradually, I became interested in robotics engineering and would sometimes join Erica at the university, attending lectures sneakily on my days off from the convenience store. The lectures were challenging with unfamiliar theorems, but I would borrow Erica's student ID and study them in the university's library afterward. Sometimes I wondered if I would have been attending this university too, if not for my dad's accident. But my days were fulfilling, juggling 2 jobs and feeling the satisfaction of supporting my mom. And most of all, being in love was fun. Erica, 3 years older, was mature and always sparked my curiosity. Yet, when we strolled along the river, her expressions were as adorable as a girl's, making me want to protect her smile forever. Erica naturally continued to graduate school. She was a top student and had many offers from research labs. But she chose to work under a famously difficult professor. As her project often went late into the night, she quit the restaurant job, so we no longer saw each other at work. However, I would go to her apartment every night after my shifts, cherishing the little time we had together. Her apartment was typical for a science student, with minimal furniture and daily necessities, and piles of specialized books everywhere. By then, the books she read were too complex for me, but sometimes Erica would explain her research in simple terms.
It's also an option to work for a few years and then go to college.
Erica told me, opening up a path I thought I had closed. Apparently, college isn't just for 18 or 19-year-old high school graduates. Many adults who worked for a while and then decided to study more also enroll. But Erica, I didn't even finish high school. When I told her this, she explained about a system called the GED. It seemed that even someone like me, who didn't graduate high school, could take this test, and if passed, be considered to have high school level education, allowing me to apply for college. I had no money for college tuition yet, and supporting my mom and myself was all I could handle. But I found a new dream. It was saving up money and going to college someday. Our dates were usually in Erica's apartment or on the university campus, but they were always fun. The university cafeteria was cheap and good, with plenty of large portion options for hungry college students. Erica loved the cafeteria's special ice cream. Every time I bought her one and brought it to the table, she lit up with joy. As much as I wished I could earn more to treat her to fancy cafe dessert, the way she cherished those cafeteria parfaits made them seem precious and dear to me. Erica often said, to earn more, it's not just about working more hours. There's a limit to how many hours a person can work. Instead, improve your skills to earn more per hour, and you'll see a salary increase even with the same number of work hours. Studying is the way to go, she repeated to me. Tempted to work more shifts whenever I wanted to buy something for Erica, I heeded her advice and focused on improving my skills. I learned to use computer software I couldn't before, and even got a cooking license. Paying for these studies felt like a loss then, but going to cooking school led to praise from the restaurant manager and a raise. Eventually, I was able to give Erica a necklace she wanted for Christmas gift. Thanks to improved computer skills, I got a job as a computer school instructor through a contract. Quitting my convenience store job and teaching locals at the computer school significantly increased my monthly earnings. As my mom's health stabilized and she started working part-time, our financial burden lightened, and we began saving money. With savings accumulating, I started thinking about marrying Erica, and we happily tied the knot in the summer when Erica graduated from her graduate program. Our new life together, with Erica working as a researcher and me continuing my jobs at the computer school and the Italian restaurant, was very happy. We rented a small apartment, cooked dinner for each other, and enjoyed our meals together every night. Just sleeping beside Erica made me feel blissful. While I continued juggling my teaching and restaurant jobs, the manager approached me one day, offering to put me in charge of the kitchen at a new location. I was the only part-timer having experience of cooking school, so it seems that's why my wage got a little bump.
John, let's save the extra from your raised salary for when you go to college.
Erica suggested, even though I wanted to treat her to all her favorite foods.
I'm completely happy with our life as it is. And you definitely should go to college. You love math so much.
She insisted on this, not letting me spend the extra money on our dates. I even offered to increase the money I sent to my mom, but she refused, having heard about college from Erica. And that's how my college savings began. One day, Erica shyly revealed something to me. "I'm pregnant," she said. We were at the peak of our happiness. Our son, Mike, turned out to be a prodigy, much to our surprise. Both Erica and I were good at math, so we expected him to like math to some extent, but he exceeded all expectations. He quickly learned to count from 1 to 100, and by the time he was in preschool, he was solving quadratic equations. He also loved binary numbers, my favorite, and could instantly convert decimal numbers to binary. While Erica continued working part-time, she would pick up Mike from daycare after her lab work and talk to him about math in a way a child could understand. Mike would listen, eyes shining with excitement. By this time, I had quit the Italian restaurant and became a full-time employee at the computer school. Mike quickly learned the computer skills I taught and breezed through programming materials for elementary students.
Hey, what do you think he'll grow up to be?
Erica asked one night, stroking the sleeping Mike's hair, then suddenly started crying. "Erica, what's wrong?" It was a happy topic, but she seemed distressed. As I looked at her in confusion, she clung to me, crying, and then revealed, I have a brain tumor." I was stunned.
Only about half a year left.
I couldn't process Erica's confession and remained silent for a long time. I needed to support her. I knew that, but my mind kept flashing back to my dad's pale face. Now Erica too. The memory of the day my mom answered the phone came flooding back. I was scared, so scared. "Tell me it's a lie, that you're just dreaming." I couldn't accept Erica's illness, and for a while, our life continued as before. Erica was undergoing treatment, but since then, she never spoke of her illness again. I thought maybe we could pretend it wasn't happening. But one day, I got a call from her lab. Erica had collapsed. Lying in the hospital bed, conscious but connected to numerous tubes and breathing through an oxygen mask. The reality was undeniable.
Please take care of Mike.
After hearing that, I finally faced reality. By then, her condition had progressed beyond the point of treatment. In the month before Erica passed away, we repeatedly talked about Mike's future. Erica kept apologizing to me and Mike It wasn't something to apologize for. The hardest part was for Erica, having to leave Mike and go alone. Mike had extraordinary talent. Erica kept saying, I agreed with her. I vowed to do my best to nurture Mike's exceptional abilities. Erica often took Mike to her lab, and everyone there adored him. Erica asked me to continue taking Mike to her lab even after she was gone. With the help of everyone in the lab, I promised to give him the best education possible. On the dawn of the day when 6-year-old Mike, holding back tears, said, Mom, it's okay. Dad and I will be all right. Erica passed away at the young age of 33. Having lost a cherished family member twice, I couldn't afford to break down. I had to protect my son, Mike. From that day on, our desperate life began, focusing on nurturing Mike's talent. As Mike's 10th birthday approached, we celebrated at a famous local restaurant known for its French cuisine. After enjoying the meal and stepping out of the restaurant, I encountered a familiar figure. Alice? Alice, my old classmate from elementary to high school, was there dining with her boyfriend. Seeing us, she immediately smirked.
You, dining at such a fancy restaurant, despite being a high school dropout, that's way out of your league.
High school dropout has nothing to do with it. Trying not to provoke Alice, especially in front of Mike, I attempted to leave quickly, but she kept throwing words at us.
A dropout can't possibly provide a proper education for their child, right?
I was furious, as I had been focusing on Mike's education as per my promise to Erica, but I tried to ignore her and leave with Mike.
Oh look, that kid's ridiculous face, just like high school dropout. I guess dropout parents have dumb kid too.
Alice continued to taunt. I could tolerate being ridiculed myself, but not when it came to Mike. I couldn't help but raise my voice. Being a high school dropout is irrelevant. Just because you went to Harvard doesn't mean you can say such things to my son.
You're the one you should have finished high school, John.
Alice retorted. Watching this, Mike said in a cold voice, Dad, is she Alice, right? Should we fire her? What are you talking about, Mike? Trying to correct him, he said, she works for one of my company's contractors. She might not know me, but I've seen her. They handle our security measures. So, at least for the current project, I can fire her. Right, Alice? Mike? No matter how much we were insulted, there was no need to retaliate. But then again, I had also talked back a bit. I silenced Mike's radical remarks.
What? This kid owns a company. He can't fire me. That's just a childish fantasy.
Alice, clearly shaken by Mike calling her by name, scoffed and disappeared back into the restaurant with her boyfriend. Mike, you shouldn't say. Should we fire her? I admonished him, but he still looked discontent. Mike has a bit of an offensive personality. Well, being recognized as a member in Erica's lab and working on robotics engineering and system development while still in elementary school, it's understandable he might be a bit brash. But kindness and relationships are fundamental for human society. Just because he's a child and works with adults in system development doesn't mean he can say anything he wants. Mike developed a digital photo app that became a hit. The profits led to the formation of a company for developing more apps, nominally with me as the CEO, but in reality, Mike was running most of it. The security part of that album was outsourced, and Alice worked for that company. When I scolded him for being harsh to our contractor, Mike puffed up his cheeks for a while, but quieted down when I mentioned his mom might cry, murmuring an apology. A few days after the restaurant incident, the data breach occurred at Alice's company. Fortunately, the leaked part was not directly related to Mike's app, but we got involved in the incident.
You did this, didn't you? You're taking revenge for the other day.
Alice accused Mike. Mike, of course, was outraged. Determined, he vowed to find the real culprit. Luckily, the breach's exit wasn't too complex. Decoding some ciphers and tracing a few IP addresses seemed feasible. With the help of everyone in the lab, we decoded the ciphers and traced the addresses, leading us to the computer of Alice's boyfriend at the restaurant, Williams. When Alice confronted him, he readily admitted that he had someone else do it.
I was jealous of Alice, who seemed to be able to do everything. It frustrated me.
Those words triggered a memory in Alice. She remembered being spiteful in the past due to not being able to match her first love in mathematics and regretting it. She had planned to confess her true feelings and apologize for everything when they graduated high school, but never got the chance because he dropped out, and that too remained unfulfilled. Despite all being her fault, she had harbored a grudge for so long and said terrible things when they met again. Alice came to my house to apologize and told me this. I was shocked to see the proud Alice bowing her head so low in apology. Her confession that she had once had feelings for me was astonishing, and it made me realize once again how uncontrollable emotions can become when entangled. Mike didn't say anything, but he seemed to sense something as Alice sincerely apologized to us and vowed to help Williams reform. Terica, Mike has turned 10 now. Today, we are visiting your grave, as we do every year. Mike's photo app is still selling well. The new features are loved by customers, and the add-ons are selling too. I report to Erica's grave.
But I did something bad.
Mike spoke up.
I was mean to someone who helps me with work, because they were mean to me first. I was the stronger one, but I bullied the weaker.
He understood his mistake. As a parent, I was relieved that Mike was reflecting on his actions.
I'm going to be kinder to others from now on. Even if they are mean, I won't retaliate. So Mom, don't worry.
Erica, Mike has grown so much, both his heart and body. He's growing up well. Then I had one more thing to tell her. Erica, I've decided to go to college next year. I want to study engineering and join Mike and the others in system development work in earnest.
If Dad joins the development, it will be really encouraging.
Mike said excitedly. So far, I've only been able to manage the company, but I've always wanted to be involved in the development. Like not just bug checking, but really getting into the essence of it. For that, I think going to college is the best way.
When I grow up, I'm going to college too. I want to go to the same university as Mom.
Mike, you are already visiting a university lab, but it's good to go to college. Not just college. You should go to graduate school too.
Yeah, then I can become a researcher like Mom. I'll leave the company to Dad.
Mike grinned mischievously. Erica, he's grown up to be so dependable. It looks like it will be a long time before I see you, but I'll have a lot of stories to tell when I do. So, wait for me there. I speak to Erica in my heart.
John, Mike, Mom is always watching over you.
It felt as if Erica's voice rode on the wind. All right, Mike, Let's eat at the university cafeteria today before heading home.
Yay.
Mike was thrilled. We started walking home, hand in hand, as the sense of spring began to mingle in the air.